I can promise you I'm not going to try and sum up the day, because I'm not sure I could. But what I was doing was I was sitting here, I was thinking about that optimism barometer, and in terms of what I've heard today, kind of where would I put myself in that optimism barometer? And so if that's like hugely optimistic and that's kind of hugely pessimistic, I think I'm about here, which is still on the fence, but not far from being kind of knocked off it, and that's not a good thing, because I am I'm chief executive of techUK, right? I'm supposed to be standing over the door in terms of my optimism about what technology can deliver. And so I was sitting there thinking, well, why is that? And I think there is a distinction I would draw between the sort of the micro and the macro. Because when I think on the micro side, when I think about what some of the individual companies and some of the biggest companies are actually doing on the ground to really try and embed ethics, to drive those principles into action. When I think what's happening in terms of civil society, when I think of that list of partners that we have for the event today and the really good work that they're doing in terms of trying to apply kind of foresight to the world of technology and to hold providers of technology to account. When I think of those things on that micro level, I feel actually quite positive, because I see on a day-to-day level really good stuff happening. But what pushes me back over this way is when I look at what's happening on a macro level. And when I look at the kind of the scale of the datafication that's happening, that in many ways is quite mindless and isn't well thought through. But also when you look at what can happen at a kind of governmental level for governments, whether they are repressive regimes or whether they are democracies that should be doing better, the temptation for them to use and pull in these technologies to control and for security reasons. So my sense is, while we're doing some really good stuff on the micro level, and I genuinely do believe we are in the process of moving from kind of principles to action. When I scale it up, it doesn't feel like enough yet, and it feels like we're quite a long way from where we need to be, given the scale and significance of these technologies, how broadly they can be applied to so many aspects of our lives. But I do again take some inspiration from Greta Thunberg, who was at COP25 today, talking about hope and the importance of kind of staying focused on what we can achieve. And one thing I would say is now is not the time to be cynical. Be skeptical, absolutely. Hold our feet to the fire, but let's not fall into cynicism, because cynicism is the thing that really will prevent us from getting where we need to be in terms of applying solutions at scale. That means that we can live in a society that gets technology just right. And then I had just one other kind of reflection in terms of we often, the last 3 years, we've sort of had the conversation, who's not in the room? Very often we've been talking about as people that Denham was talking about, which is people who are just left out of the conversation, who have very little agency in the conversation. But it strikes me about who's not in the room today at this event. Well, it's the politicians. They're all out doing other stuff, and I think if there's something that I think we all need to be aware of and kind of cognizant of is, this election campaign has not been very edifying, from a perspective of how we drive responsible technology. This is not an issue that appears to be at the forefront of people's minds. It's not there in the public discourse. Yes, there's plenty of kind of alarm and outrage when things go wrong, but very rarely does that alarm and outrage kind of translate into thoughtful, practical action. And it seems to me that one thing we probably can't or shouldn't be relying on in this next few years is that the politicians will come with all of the solutions and that they're going to suddenly kind of engage with us in a really practical solution. And I do think that this has to be a combination of the businesses, the technologies, the industries that are driving the innovation, and civil society working together to really work through how we get this right. Because it's complicated, right? It's not about simple black and white solutions. It's about things that are complicated and nuanced, and we have to kind of work through the detail, and we have to work together through the detail. And that's why I'm so pleased that at techUK we've got a long track record of working with the kind of emergent sort of civil society actors in this field, and we will absolutely commit to doing that in the years ahead. So, you know, I haven't fallen off the edge in terms of my optimism, but you know, we can't underplay the significance and importance of these issues, and we have to kind of apply our thoughts to them. And one thing where I am, as I said earlier in my remarks this morning, I am actually very optimistic about what we can do in terms of the really big issue around climate change. Because actually, the one tool that we've got that is totally new in the fight against climate change is our ability to quantify things, to develop data, to apply data, to do things and re-engineer things at scale and at pace. And I think if there was ever a moment of sort of salvation for the technology sector, it can absolutely be in how we apply technology and data, first of all, to decarbonize the digital economy itself. And I think that's entirely possible, but also then how we apply these technologies to the rest of the economy, because that is absolutely the number one opportunity for us to deliver tech for good at scale that could be transformational for everybody on the planet. That's the end of my but that's sort of my kind of initial thoughts and reactions just to kind of what we've heard today. It has been a fantastic day. We are hugely grateful to our sponsors, who without whom we couldn't put on an event of this scale. And so to Microsoft, Intel, Visa, Splunk, and Quantum Black, huge thanks and much appreciation for your support. I, of course, have to thank my incredible team at techUK. They are amazing. The greatest pleasure I have in my job is the people I get to work with. So Noreen Aldworth at the back, who is our events person, who is just incredible, who is just so calm about these events. Absolute joy to work with. Catherine Mays, who's where are you, Catherine? Oh, she's still working away somewhere else. Catherine is the person who's really worked on this event all through the year and planning for it and developing it. So she's been amazing. And of course, the incredible Sue Daly, who is just a brilliant person to work with. To all of you, thank you so much. In terms of our, oh yes, I think the Digital Ethics Christmas reading list. Am I right in thinking it's at the back of the program? Yeah. We did ask quite a few of you for any recommendations for things that you or your family might want to read over the Christmas period. So do check that out. Some interesting recommendations there. And maybe we could all create our own little book group to kind of do our own reviews. And then finally, in terms of our Christmas appeal, I think we're getting very close to our objective of trying to get to £2,000. So anything any of you could do to help us get over the line before the end of the day, that would be wonderful. That's it, really. Thank you so much for staying with us throughout the day. I hope you found it a really useful and interesting event. We see it as a really important time to benchmark where we're getting to in terms of what we've achieved, what we need to do in the year ahead. And we will reconvene next year to provide another ring around the tree to see how we're doing. But thank you to all of you. And I think there are drinks. Yes. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.